Hi everyone, this is Alvin from Contender Bicycles based in Salt Lake City in Park City, Utah, and I'm standing beside the 3T Exploro RaceMax gravel bike. The Exploro RaceMax that I have in front of me is the second iteration of the 3T Exploro line, originally introduced in late 2015. The original Exploro, when it was introduced, was a relatively novel concept. One, for being a gravel bike, which was still trying to be understood at the time, but it was also an aero bike. And because it was those two things, there was a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of controversy around how good the bike actually was. But once we were able to get out on it, we understood that not only was it a good gravel bike, or a good aero bike, or a good aero gravel bike, that it was just a good bike in general. We find here with the Exploro RaceMax that once you get past all the aero detailing and all of the tech that goes into this, that this is just a great bike to ride. And so before we dive into the nitty-gritty of the Exploro RaceMax, we have to talk a little bit about the reasoning behind the aerodynamic efficiency that's associated with this bike. Aero isn't a new concept with road bikes, but it's seen a mass proliferation over the past few years, with the mindset being that if you can build a bike that isn't compromised in its weight or ride quality or handling, but still has an aerodynamic advantage, why wouldn't you want to add the aerodynamics? And the idea is the same with the Exploro RaceMax. Gerard Fruman, the head engineer of this bike, claims that with a 61mm wide tire, that 90% of the aerodynamics here are maintained, so that even with a wide tire, you can still take advantage of the aerodynamics that are provided with this frame. And so while you might be traveling at a relatively low land speed, if you're in a relatively exposed area where there's a lot of wind, having that slight advantage due to an aerodynamic frame allows you to go slightly farther, faster. And now we have to talk a little bit about that 61mm wide tire that I claimed. That 61mm measurement comes from a 3T measurement that they call WAM, which stands for width as measured, and it's also accompanied by something called RAM, otherwise known as radius as measured, and that refers to the radius of a wheel in a tire package as well as the width of the tire on a specific internal rim width. So for one example, you could take a tire where you might want something that measures out at 40mm wide, and according to its width as measured on a 25mm wide internal rim width and 700C tire, you can take a Schwalbe G1 all-around that on the sidewall says it's a 700 by 35mm wide tire, and find out that it measures out to a WAM, or width as measured, of 40mm. RAM and WAM come in handy to determine how this 3T Exploro was thought of when it was being designed. The idea here is that this Exploro RaceMax come in two iterations. Race being a bike set up with a 1x or 2x drivetrain with 700C wheels and slightly narrower tires, or Max, where you take a 1x drivetrain with a wider tire as you see here. Those two dueling characteristics really play out in how this frame is designed. Even just looking at the fork and looking at how thin that fork crown is, you'll see that it brings that wheel really close to the down tube for improved aerodynamics, but it also means that you can fit a really wide tire with a WAM of 61mm. In fact, here, the axle to crown measurement of 370mm isn't just the same as the 3T Strato road bike, but it's also about the same as most other aero road bikes out on the market today. Also, as you can see on this bike, that the down tube flares out around the water bottles to shield them in an effort to improve aerodynamics. And you'll also see that the Aero seat post here, that is proprietary to this bike, but is also shared with the 3T Exploro, has a redesigned seat post clamp from Ritchie that is said to be simpler and lighter weight and easier to adjust your saddle on the go. Additionally, that down tube that I mentioned comes in variable depths, the idea being that ride quality is preserved regardless of whether you're riding a small bike, like this 51cm bike here, as well as the largest bike available. Further, you'll find that different sizes have different fork offsets, with the two small sizes having a different fork offset than the larger sizes to preserve your trail, again to maintain similar handling regardless of which size you might be riding. Additionally, the bottom bracket drops are different based on your size, again to maintain similar ride quality and center of gravity, as well as to maintain pedal clearance over rough terrain. terrain and rocks and ruts and such. Additional features with the Exploro RaceMax include the 2 water bottle cages, as well as the down tube water bottle cage, as well as the bento box mount up top just behind the Aero cabling that goes into the top tube. You'll also find that a size 54 frame weighs in at 1,050 grams and comes in at $3,200 for the frame set. We touched a little bit on geometry when we talked about bond bracket heights and different fork offsets with the 3T Exploro, but it should be mentioned that the reach and stack measurements of the 3T Exploro are actually changed compared to the previous 3T Exploro. Here you'll find that the sizing is a little bit more progressive, which means that the larger sizes offer a little bit more stack than that previous 3T Exploro. That puts you in a really racy position if you're in a size large or extra large. Here you'll find that you'll be able to get a little bit more comfortable so that when you're going fast over myriad surfaces, that you can preserve your back as well. While these reach and stack measurements might be more progressive when compared to the previous Exploro, there's no denying that this bike was designed to put you in a road bike-like position, and that plays out on the road. In this smaller size, you'll find that the fork offset and the trail figures are similar to that of a road bike, and so that when you're going to pedal or when you're looking for stability at speeds, it handles much like your traditional road bike. The one thing that's unique about this bike is that, especially in the Max configuration with this wide tire, is that when you enter it into a corner on pavement at higher speeds, you'll find a little bit of vagueness, largely due to that wider tire and the additional air volume. However, once you hit that apex and you're out of the corner, the extra grip and ride smoothness that comes from the wider tire really gives you a lot of confidence when you're getting out, and you're able to put down the power maybe a little bit more quickly than you might otherwise on a traditional road bike. Overall, it's a different riding experience, but it didn't lead me to feel that this bike was much slower out on the road than you might expect from something with a wider tire as this. Additionally, that road bike positioning allows you to ride on the road for long distances, even if you are going a little bit more slowly than you would due to the wider tires. But because it's a relatively lightweight frame and it's about the same weight as what you'd find from a traditional mid-level road bike, it feels spry, so that when you're out on the trail, kind of like you see here, or you're out on the pavement, you're sure to be able to pedal this bike quickly and go as fast or as slow as you might like. This 3T Exploro RaceMax in its max configuration comes in at $58.99, and for that you're getting a SRAM Force AXS drivetrain, you're getting a Physique Tempo Argo saddle, a 3T Aeroghiaia gravel handlebar, and Panaracer Gravel King SK tires. Final thoughts on the 3T Exploro RaceMax, specifically this bike in its max configuration. We ask you to separate its aero intentions from the bike. We ask you to consider that this is not just a good aero gravel bike, but it's a good bike. It handles well, it's lightweight, and it's supremely versatile. And when you add in all those characteristics with the aero advantage that this bike provides, there's no denying that it's one of the best lightweight gravel bikes out on the market today. There's a lot of ways that you can build this bike, which again plays into one of its many advantages, where you can fit that wide tire while still having a 2x drivetrain and the road bike positioning that a lot of riders want. If you're unsure as to how to build your RaceMax, come find us at contenderbicycles.com, where we'll be able to give you advice from experienced bike riders like yourself. Additionally, you can give us a call during business hours or check us out on social media. If you found this video informative, be sure to give us a like or a comment and consider subscribing as well. Thanks, everyone.